Good morning, Facebook land. It's Kalidasi here. And I wanted to offer a personal post today. My original plan was to talk about the upcoming Modern Temple Dance Immersion, and we're definitely going to get to that. And I wanted to talk about the underlayers of why we're doing this, of why I'm doing this, why I was called to this work. And it comes from a very personal story. When I started my dance journey, I started with many different styles, ballet, tap, jazz, your regular repertoire of dance that many Westerns do when they pursue dance. And then I got into belly dance when I was much older. And then I felt, when I started to belly dance, I felt this power, this force that was awakened within me when I danced. And I couldn't explain it, and I didn't understand where it came from. However, it was my first introduction to dance being a gateway to something greater than myself. It awakened something in me, and I didn't know that was possible. I know that when you work out, when you exercise your body, there is definitely a peace and a bliss that is realized when you do that. However, this was something very, very different. I felt it was my connection. It was my portal to spirit. So that started my journey. What is this about? And is belly dance the only one? And why belly dance? So it became incorporated into my spiritual practice because it was so close to my connection to God. It immediately became a prayer for me. So I immediately incorporated dancing and my connection to spirit and my way of opening myself up so I could listen to spirit. At the time, I was I was very much, and I still am, into honoring the feminine divine. So I noticed it was a very immediate way for me to connect to Goddess, to the divine feminine. And so I used that as my communication to her. And I started to study different dance forms. Is this the only one? Is there a historical pretense? Or is there a historical context to dance being connected to spiritual practice, to a way humans can connect to the unseen world, not just to God, to the gods, however, to nature, to the ancestors? Is this a thing? And I started to research, and then I found out that indeed it was. Over many, many cultures throughout the world, historically, dance was honored and recognized for thousands of years as being this key, this portal to connect us. So I started digging further, and the dance forms that hi Christina, thanks for joining us, thanks for joining me. I started pursuing classical Indian dance. In classical Indian dance, many of the classical Indian dances came from temple dance. It came from several dance forms where the dancers themselves were, in all respects, priestesses. They did not call themselves priestesses. They called them Maharis and Devadasis. However, they offered their dance to God. They offered their dance to the God of the temple in the inner sanctum, and that was them giving their energy to the deity, and return receiving the blessings of the deity within themselves and to the temple and to their local kingdoms. And this reciprocity was honored as a very sacred act for many thousands of years. There is a very long history of why there are no more Devadasis. We won't go into that today. That is not the purpose of this particular webinar. But suffice to say, there are no Devadasis in the traditional context within the temple compound, within the physical structures of the temple. However, what it can offer us is the context to their practice, their devotion, their service, the way they viewed dance, can offer us some really powerful guidelines of how this has been done for thousands of years. And to take that and to see, now that we take it outside of, now that we don't have, in most instances, we don't have a temple that we dance inside of, we can create our own. However, how can we take the qualities and the medicines of these traditions and take it into ourselves as modern, many of us Western practitioners, and bring that out into the world and use the medicines that were channeled through us as dancers and to bring that out into the world. So that is my core work. That is the work that I do, and that is what I teach, to see what is the bottom line, the underlying value, the underlying principle of how dance was upheld, how it was elevated. And the purpose of dance being so elevated was to, and I'm saying this through the Vedic contents. So my research is through Vedic practices, through studying the history of the Nati Shastra. The Nati Shastra is the sacred the sacred text of dance and drama that's several thousands of years old in the Vedic tradition. So the purpose of dance, as is stated in the Nati Shastra, is that it's to elevate humanity out of its suffering. In order, well, we, not just as the dancers, dancing is elevated in those moments, but those that witness dance are also transcend the suffering of their human condition, at least in those moments of dance. And the purpose is hopefully afterwards, that with all the reading and the studying and the chanting, and following the practices, good living has not given them what they needed in order to reach a bliss-permeated state. However, in those moments of suspension, when they see dance, the power that dance has to transmit the energies of God, of this sattvic life, this pure life, you're able to, in those moments, feel, well, what is it like to be in that balanced state? What is it? This is what it feels like to not be so consumed and worried about survival. This is what it feels like to just be in this beautiful stasis when you're one with the divine. So dance has been shown through thousands of years, and that was its intended purpose within the Vedic context. So how can we do that? How can we bring dance back to that elevated state? So it's not just a frivolous exercise that we do on the side. It's not just something to perpetuate our own ego. It's a way to serve our community by bringing it back and bringing it back to that space. So that is very important to me, and that is what I teach for those that feel called to this. So on the very human side, as I developed these practices, as I began to study, what I'd also been struggling with on the lower layers, that I had for many years complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and I didn't know that I had this for many years. However, for those of us that have had this, we know that what it tells us is that the body isn't safe. Whatever has happened to us that has created this trauma, the body is saying it's not safe to be in here, be outside. So it's just, we're not rooted, we're not in our bodies, you dissociate. So how do you bridge that? How did I bridge that as a dancer who needs to be in your body, as somebody who reveres sacred dance, to say, I have to be in my body so I can be a channel, so I feel connected to God, so I can perhaps through the transmission, when I surrender to this, help people relieve them of their suffering. Well, how do I reconcile that with this very human person that's suffering from trauma, and the trauma is trying to keep me safe by keeping me outside of my body? So for many years, this was just like this struggle. So through many years of practice, I had to figure out all the steps that I needed to take, all of the foundation that I needed to lay within myself in order to feel safe, in order for my trauma to calm, to take a breath, to subside enough that I could be fully rooted in my body so this dance can happen. So I spent many years studying different practices and different techniques through two of my wonderful lineages that I am a part of now. One Western, it's the lineage of King Solomon, and my Eastern lineage, which is the Sri Vidya Shakta Tantra, and other practices. And to create a foundation in order to do this practice. So I can happily say that I no longer suffer from PTSD, not close the way I used to, and I have a treasure trove of practices that work harmoniously with each other very beautifully, that honor that we have several bodies. It's just not our physical body, it's our emotional body, it's our mental body, it's the larger external layers of the aura that's our connection to the astral world. It's our spiritual body. It's another way to describe that. There are many parts of us that need to be all online, that need to be all in sync in order for us to feel safe. So it's not just mentally safe, it's not just emotionally safe, it's not just physically safe, even though that has to be the most important thing. All of these things need to feel harmonized and recognized for us to do this work. So these techniques, I feel, are absolutely crucial and fundamental in order to do this practice. So this is why we have an immersion. This is why we spend all this time going into these practices, breath practices, visualization, rooting practices, yogic practices, all of these things. And there's a step-by-step, and there is a system, there is a process that we start with one and then we start with another, and they all layer on top of each other really beautifully. So when we're done, then we can do our work, then we can do our technique. Then we can drill, then we can work on the intellectual, like the mudras and the eye movements and the body movements and everything that we do that builds our physical dance so beautifully. There is a process that needs to happen in order for us to do that. Specifically, if we are honoring dance beyond just rhythm and movement, we are honoring ourselves as channels, and I know many of us are. So this is really important. So this is why I have an immersion that's coming up on March 23rd, where we go into that. And then once we do all that, then we go into the technique, and then we put it all together into a choreography. So we get a full holistic understanding of what it means, like what we're doing with this. It's not just the technique, it's not just the choreography, it's not even just the devotion. Devotion comes with surrender, and how can you surrender if you are in a survival state? And and we're honoring that too. So there are many of us out there that have experienced trauma, and that needs to be honored, and that needs to be respected. So these techniques do that to make sure we're all in a safe space, we're all completely open, and we're all rooted, so then the work can happen. So that's day one. So that's on March 23rd. That's what we're getting into. And then on March 24th, the day after, so March 23rd will be from 10 to 5, and that's in Freeport, Maine at the beautiful Bhavana Spas. And then March 24th, that will be in Portland, Maine. That will be at Hustle and Flow, and that's a 2-hour workshop. And I see this as an experimental lab. So we're going to take the foundation of what we did, and then we're going to see how we can explore how this energy that we're moving through our body, how we have our own specific expressions of that. And so this is geared towards those of us, for all of us, that have a difficulty, whether it's personal, whether it's global, that you're struggling with, how we can take the dance and to drop that question in, to drop that problem, that issue in, and how to resolve it through these techniques, resolve it within ourselves, and then resolve it externally, because it all starts inside. And then working with each other to help create these beautiful mandala dances, and to witness each other how the alchemy through this practice of conflict and resolution, when we create that medicine and we compost it within these dance practices, how that's projected outwards, and we get to witness and see the darshan of that alchemy, and see that this is how real and how relevant this is today, that it wasn't just an ancient practice, how this is a timeless practice of composting pain and trauma and conflict, and healing that and creating that as medicine, not just within us, but also outside of us. So the second day, we get to experience our own, find our own signature, our own style of dance, and then to witness each other and then dance too, to see how powerful it is. So you'll be going home with handouts, with techniques, and not just what's worked for me. You get to develop what's worked for you, so you can continue this practice on your own, which is what I'm hoping for. So I'll put the event put the event pages and the bottom of this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, you can drop it down in the comment section, or just PM me. And I'm sending you lots of love, and I hope you have a wonderful day.